Well, in 72 hours, more or less about the time that Miss Bhutto will be in Lahore. 72 hours and a bit more, it'll be all over here in the Fulham by-election. A political watershed, they say, with the big three parties desperately anxious that they're all running with the stream. Tonight, we have some hints from our telephone recheck poll that the result, in part, could be closer than some think. Well, with the details of that and of activities both political and cultural, here's Vincent Hanna.
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what sort of a by-election is this? With John Williams warming up a political meeting with some Albanese. What sort of campaign features Dennis Healey in a political love-in with Ken Livingstone? Or sends Jerry Fitt out glad-handing with Michael Foot?
Steer you on the right course,
yes,
as usual, Jerry.
Why, suddenly, do we see Neil Kinnock in a mosque? Or Humphrey Lyttelton on top of a bus? Well, what you're seeing here is one of the rarest sights in British post-war politics. The Labour Party in with a real chance of winning a by-election, an experience they've been waiting for in London for 29 years. And that's not all. You're also watching Neil Kinnock fighting for his political future.
Well met, sir. I recognise you from your photographs.
He's got to have a victory in Fulham on Thursday, or Glenys and he will have to postpone picking out new curtains for number 10. And not just any victory will do.
We're going to win, and I think we're going to win substantially. And I believe the win is going to have a snowball effect. It's going to prove that Labour's on its way.
Substantially, you mean how many?
I don't think you can put a number on substantially. Substantially is a concept, not a number.
But if you don't win by 10,000.
Any advance on 10,000?
You are also watching the Conservative Party desperately clinging on to every supporter it can find.
A canine vote.
Not so much because the Tories expect to hold the seat, but because they just have to push the alliance into third place, where they hope they belong.
This by-election is a straight fight between Labour and Conservative. The other socialist candidate is well back in third place. So the choice before the voters here is quite simple.
Some by-elections, you see, are life and death struggles for the two old parties. But for the alliance, they're more important than that. Fulham is by far the SDP's biggest challenge in this parliament. If it doesn't do well here, it will lose much political face, especially if Fulham goes Labour and the SDP is third.
We're not going to throw our hats in the air if we're in third place. Of course we're not. And of course by-elections are important. But still, to take the view that it would be the end of the alliance or anything like that would be absolute nonsense.
All the parties are now agreed that Labour is the front runner. But hold on a minute. Fulham going Labour? What, you might be asking, is socialist about the land of stripped pine, futons, BMWs, and people who know friends of Sarah Ferguson? Yes, of course, Michael Stewart used to hold it for Labour. But wasn't that back in the old days, when artisans' cottages didn't have B-days? Fulham has gone upmarket in the last decade, as any estate agent will tell you.
Because when Fulham has become really quite gentrified over recent years, and here we are on a pretty standard street in Fulham, which has now become really very smart. Prices...
5 years ago, how much? Yeah.
Well, 5 years ago, one of these houses probably about sort of 70 or 80,000 pounds, and nowadays, up to 250,000 for one of those larger houses with a roof terrace on it.
But Fulham is part of a borough with stark contrasts. Parts of Gibbs Green Ward in the northern end have unemployment rates of over 25%. There are actually fewer housing units in Fulham with baths than there are in Lambeth or Hackney. You can still find lots of poor quality, privately rented flats and decaying council blocks like Fulham Court. That's why the seat is marginal. That's why local issues like rates, social services and crime could affect Thursday's result. The Labour Party has been making an election issue out of Nick Rainsford's local connections, with confusing effect. Rainsford may have been the director of a housing charity, but this is ridiculous.
I'm certainly as local as he is, and probably more so, given that I was born very close to Fulham and was brought up very close to Fulham and have lived most of my life closer to the north of the constituency than where he lives in the south of the constituency.
Well, I'm glad we cleared that up. Matthew Carrington, 38, the Tory standard-bearer, is an amiable but reserved banker whose fight has been defensive from the start. His leaflets concede that Labour has a substantial lead, and the party has been at pains to protect him from vote-losing mistakes. Candidates nowadays come to by-elections equipped with a minder. In this case, it's Michael Portillo, hero of the Enfield by-election. At the start, he made sure that Carrington got his facts right.
And would I be right in thinking, Matthew, that crime in London has gone up by less than anywhere else and that burglary is on the way down, in fact?
Sure.
But later on, Portillo left him more to his own devices than perhaps was wise.
I'm quoting from the Daily Mail of the 17th of March, which is a breakdown.
Where is the Labour, apart from what the Daily Mail says, where does the Labour Party, where has Mr Hattersley ever said, or indeed anyone in the Labour Party, that they propose to introduce a 35-hour week?
Well, let me see what I can dig up for you. Because I think I have somewhere or another the John McGregor's proposals as letters to Roy Hattersley. In fact, let me come back to you on that, if I may.
Carrington is a firm, unreconstructed Thatcherite, and there have been sly digs about his alleged unwillingness to be seen in public with political opponents, which is most unfair, considering with whom he spent at least an hour in the North End Road this morning.
No substitute for getting out there, talking to them. Well, getting out people who say they're going to vote Conservative. We can get the people who say they're going to vote Conservative out to vote on Thursday, won't we?
Will you shake hands with me?
Yes, because you'll give Mr Thatcher some stick in
No. You've made the journalist day.
The polls, for what they are worth in a by-election, show Carrington at the moment a solid second, and allow him perhaps to dream of one of the better Tory performances of this Parliament.
The voters in Fulham will be voting Conservative on April the 10th, and it'll be because of that that the voters of Fulham will send me to Westminster on April the 11th.
People do like Matthew Carrington, and maybe that counts a bit in Fulham.
Well, thank you. Can I shake you by the hand? Thank you very much indeed. Nice smile. Thank you. Bye.
There are two socialist parties competing with us in this election, and we aim to defeat both of them. I'm indifferent to where they land up, as long as neither of them are in first place.
But of course a third place would be a disaster for the Conservative Party at this point, should that conceivably happen.
I think that there's no reason to expect that it would happen. The polls have been consistent all the way through in showing the Conservative and Labour parties close, and the other party, the other socialist, in a poor third place. What I say is encouraging to me is that there's been no evidence of this famous late surge which the Liberals and the SDP always talk about, and indeed we're finding the reverse.
Roger Liddell is also 38 and a founder member of the SDP after 16 years in the Labour Party. His Fulham campaign started uneasily.
Good morning. Can I say hello? Oh, I see. Okay.
He seemed to obscure his substantial political assets in a smokescreen of mannerisms and gestures. Within the SDP, he is not exactly Dr. Owen's favourite son, and last year wrote an internal memo querying his leader's image, a matter which Her Majesty's press was eager to discuss with him.
This is rather embarrassing to ask this question because you apparently are at odds with your leader about your leader, who's too toffee-nosed and isn't appealing to the working class, and the sooner you heighten Shirley Williams' public profile, the better. Or is this a fake, this document I have here?
No, it's not a fake. It's a document which David himself asked me to write, and I think David can comment on it on himself, but it's certainly something that he asked me to write. It was an internal party document. It was basically saying that our members had got to pull their fingers out and got to start working on the ground, particularly in working class wards.
But in the last 10 days, Liddell's political touch has been surer.
Not many Conservatives left in Fulham.
No, that's quite true, actually.
I can assure you of that.
He's had his share of show business supporters on the streets, and he did well in the only televised debate of the by-election, displaying a talent for infighting clearly developed during his 5 years as a councillor in Lambeth.
And if you really cared about the situation in Hammersmith and Fulham...
We do, and we're going to win control of the council in May.
If you really cared about it, you wouldn't have given up your council seat in 1975. You would have kept
publicly
fighting.
stated you've given up your seat in Lambeth.
Yes, but at least I've been fighting extremism.
You've just given it up. Why?
At least
How do you justify that?
At least I've been fighting extremism in the Labour Party, which
Why
as far
have you
as I
given
can,
up your leadership in Lambeth?
which as far as because I'm going to be the MP in Fulham.
If you want to win, it's helpful if you can find a bandwagon to climb on, as any veteran campaigner will tell you.
There was a bandwagon at Crosby, there was a bandwagon at Bermondsey. Maybe there was a bandwagon in one or two other places. There was not, in my view, a bandwagon at Portsmouth. I'm not sure. I don't think there was a bandwagon at Brecon and Radnor. And I can absolutely assure you that at this stage there was no damn bandwagon in Hill Head. It was pushing an old, overladen cart up one of those extremely steep hills with a gale blowing down the other way.
All I can tell you is Monday in Portsmouth South, we had an NOP opinion poll which showed us at 25%. The others were 41 and 33 on the 30th, I think. And we won that seat 3 days later. So you've got to be a bit sceptical about opinion polls. All history of since the SDP was created, which is only 5 years, shows that we come up in the last few days of campaigns. But this is a tough nut for us to crack.
Before meeting the Labour candidate, it might be helpful to point out who he isn't.
Bernie Grant.
Bernie Grant.
Bernie Grant.
Bernie Grant.
Bernie Gray.
The real Labour candidate is 40, a moderate, and all his opponents call him formidable. If you believe opinion polls, then Rainsford is almost uncatchable in Fulham. But remember what nonsense the result in Brecon and Radnor made of the polls, when the Alliance sneaked through to win in the last few days. All the big political stars are welcome, provided, like Ken Livingstone, they've renounced the hard left, who'd be about as welcome in Fulham as a pork chop at a bar mitzvah. This was illustrated perfectly in an April Fool's joke played by the press on Nick Rainsford. They told him that Derek Hatton was coming to support him at a Young Socialists rally. It wasn't true, of course, but even the thought of it twanged a raw nerve in the candidate.
I have not been invited. I've not even heard about it. It's news this morning. I do not welcome Derek Hatton in Fulham.
Won't you be going if he's coming to speak in behalf of your candidate?
No, I will not. I will actually send a message immediately to tell him he is not welcome. I don't want to see him in Fulham, thank you.
What about the LPYS, then, who are organising the meeting?
Well, I've heard nothing about this, frankly, and it just seems to me a silly and wholly irrelevant diversion from the main part of the campaign, which is about getting better policies for Fulham people. I mean, loads of people are going to want to try and exploit this, to try and have a go at us. And what we're concerned about is ensuring that this election is fought on the critical issues about what is going to be right for Britain and what is going to be right for Fulham.
Even on April Fool's Day.
Maybe that's what's prompted the suggestion.
Outside, in the street, he is relaxed and effective. When there are cameras about, he can go into fluent political patter for any senior citizens who just happen to be passing.
Because we have to get a change, and the people of Fulham are saying it quite clearly. The message I'm getting is, firstly, that we have to have a new government that's going to take seriously issues like unemployment and housing and the health service. And secondly, that they know very well that Liberals are keeping the Conservatives in power here in the council. A vote for the Alliance is quite simply a vote for the Conservatives.
How long have they been doing it here?
For the last 7 3/4 years.
Have they?
I think we have an enhanced opportunity when we have the asset of a candidate like Nick, but it isn't the difference between winning and losing. I think that if we get 39% or above, we will be doing very well, given that it's a by-election and assortment of other factors. If we get over 40%, we'll be doing brilliantly, and anything above that is an immense bonus. I certainly think that we shall hit between 39 and 41% in all decimal subdivisions of that.
Well, in just 2 days, you can see whether Neil Kinnock is a better forecaster than the opinion polls. But to see how the wind was blowing, we decided to telephone 234 of our original opinion poll sample of 2 weeks ago. Now, we found very little movement between the firm supporters of each of the three parties, but there was one interesting feature. Most of the don't knows in our sample of a fortnight ago have now made up their minds, and the Alliance have been doing rather well out of them. It doesn't affect Labour's position, but it does bring the Alliance vote up closer to that of the Conservatives. And it may mean that the battle for that face-saving second place will be a lot fiercer than the polls are suggesting. It certainly means that the harassed people of Fulham have another 48 hours of torment to endure.